Namaste and good evening to all of you. I'm glad to be again together with you in this way. It's quite a long time since I have done satsangs. Also tonight I have chosen a completely different theme because the series of satsangs which I have done mostly during this year was that I started a commentary on the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, a fundamental text. Years and years ago I made a commentary on the Geranda Samhita. And I felt inspired this year to continue with the second of the big three, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. The problem with this is that I was inactive for a while, concerned with other issues. And every time when I have to do a satsang on Hatha Yoga Pradipika, I have to prepare a considerable translation of shlokas before so that I can comment them for you. And that means it involves that I should do some homework before the satsang. And in these last weeks, I had no time for any homework. So I don't have any extra shloka translated. And therefore, I kept on postponing. And I said I will not do a satsang because I simply don't have any shlokas to comment for people. Tonight, however, I received several questions from different people, suggestions or subjects. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do it freely. I generally speak freely. I sometimes just decide on some bullets, some ideas that I don't want to miss. But my style of speaking is generally freely. And there were questions about the free will, the Dharma, including the Dharma of being born as a man, the Dharma of being born as a woman. Somebody was asking about the inner voice, that some people define that we have an inner voice, and how do we know that inner voice is not our ego or some demons telepathically talking through our brain, or it's the voice of our soul, which will implicitly make it the voice of our guardian angel and the voice of God. And other such thrilling questions, in which it dawned upon me that I would like rather to clarify those and a few others. I would like to include them under a bigger umbrella, under a vaster subject, because it involves an understanding not only of the process of evolution. That I'm not going to explain again too much, because we have a special workshop here in Agama called the Metaphysical Workshop, and whoever has not attended that one has missed an important part of the spiritual teachings. Sooner or later you have to go through that workshop, where the process of evolution and the idea of evolution is explained thoroughly, and from there it leads to some spectacular understandings of the universe. Starting from that workshop, we can only agree or start from the premises in this discussion tonight, where I freely debate for you this subject, that we are here on this planet Earth for evolving. Each and every one of us, including the animals and the plants, any living creature on this planet, endowed with a form of consciousness. Consciousness is a very slippery word, and if you say that a tree has consciousness, a cat has consciousness, and the human being has consciousness, then it looks like something very, very different. And people say, what consciousness is that? Then you go to the ideas of the Kashmiri Shaivists, who say that even rocks have consciousness, or atoms, or as they love to say it in Kashmiri Shaivism, a jug, just a mug, a glass, a can for drinking liquid is conscious. But what conscious? Then what is consciousness? Then we have the question that we don't know at all what consciousness is. So let's leave it to that. We don't go into that direction tonight. Maybe that's another subject some other time, because consciousness is just a generic English word which designates several aspects of the human existence and of the divine existence. And we are getting back to our story that according to the basics of metaphysics, one thing is for clear. We are here to evolve. There exists a process which is called evolution, and that means, roughly speaking, that souls, by going through a lot of experiences, exactly as you have been in this life for 30 years, 40 years, and you say, I have had an experience, and I have learned to do this, and I have learned to no longer do that, or whatever. That kind of experience accumulates in the soul. The soul is accessing the memory. The soul has access to a data bank of memory, and it learns, it develops through this repeated experiences. Buddha claims that he had 10,000 lifetimes by the times he reached nirvana, and that half of those lifetimes, about 5,000, were as a human being. So 5,000 in other forms of life prior to human, which means vegetal, animal, and 5,000 lifetimes because the human being is already way more complex and it has lots of aspects to develop. And as a human being, you have to be polished and polished and polished and polished and polished and polished and go again through 1,000 aspects. Think only about the spokes of the chakras, which are a very diluted aspect, that there are 48 spokes on the chakras up till Vishuddha chakra, which define about 48 basic modalities of energies of the human being. But then we don't have only spokes. We have sub-levels of the chakras. We have the aspects of yin and yang. We have so many other things there. And that's why, for a human being, consciousness, the development of the consciousness and the evolution of the soul is not at all an easy process. It's a complex process. Therefore, we start from these premises that we agree on this. And if you disagree with this, then go to the metaphysical workshop. We have even satsangs which are placed online 10 years ago, where there are the basic ideas of this evolution of the soul through the manifestation. And again, Hindus and Buddhists claim that it takes not one life, that it's absurd that nobody can evolve totally in one life. And then we say that Buddha evolved and reached nirvana. That's because he was on the last lap, on the last 100 meters of the big race. And then it gave the impression that he came now, and when he was 36, he became enlightened. Yeah, but before that, he had another 2 million years of existences summed up together, and therefore the issue is considerably more complex. Coming back to our story, when we start from the idea that, okay, souls are born on this planet and they evolve. And they evolve through experience, positive or negative. Even when you have a pain, physical pain, disease, or when you have a psychological pain, emotional pain, frustration, not to mention also the good experiences, because not only the bad ones are there, one learns something from it. So the soul is in a process of evolution, which ends to the state of Buddhahood. To simplify things, Paramahamsa Yogananda explains things in considerable more detail, and that's why I said when you will join the metaphysical workshop, there you will learn all the details of this great picture of the universe with the evolution of the soul. Where are we going to, and what's the function of yoga, and what's the function of meditation, and all those things. Until then, we see, when we look at this evolution, we see that there are two main forces, one of them easier to see and the other one of them a bit more subtle, which are governing this process of evolution. When you look at anybody's evolution, like let's take a great hero of history, Arjuna, the friend of Krishna, who is one of the main heroes in the Bhagavad Gita and actually in the Mahabharata per all, because Bhagavad Gita is just a chapter just a part of the greater Mahabharata. And Arjuna obviously evolves. Why? Not obviously, it's simply because he has to evolve. This is a postulate, this is an aphorism. Everybody who is on this planet is here because they have been sent to evolve. Even in the case of one like Jesus, who is not a citizen of this planet but a visitor coming to this planet, as he says it very clearly, even for Jesus, there is something happening. Like when he comes, he is not the Christ, and when he goes, he is the Christ. After he got crucified and accepted it with humbleness and awaited patiently to be resurrected, again with the same divine humbleness, Jesus says clearly, now that I have gone through this, all power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Jesus says, I was a very, very special thing before going through this crucifixion in Jerusalem. But now that I have gone through it, there is something additional to me. Something additional has happened to me. And he says, I have been given power, which means responsibility, of a special kind. Therefore, look, Jesus is not supposed to evolve in any way, and still he made a step forward in a certain direction just by coming and being Jesus. And therefore, we are aware of the fact that everybody is here to evolve, and again, with Jesus things are super complex, super complicated. Let's talk about the normal people, being by normal, including even a Buddha, who, as he claims himself, Buddha never said, I'm a visitor coming from heaven and I've been sent down here to solve your problems. Or no, Buddha humbly says, I am a soul who has been in bodies for thousands of lifetimes, and now finally I have reached to the graduation day, I have reached to the fruition day. It is the time for nirvana, and I got my nirvana, and I hope you all can join me. And thus, even for a Buddha, there is this process of evolution. Which forces do we see most often? Because people are easily looking at physical things, etherical things, astral things like emotions. Was Buddha pure in his emotions or not? Was he jealous? Was he angry? Was he this or was he that? People look even at emotional structure. They want to psychoanalyze Buddha or something like this, and they look at mental things. What was the philosophy of Plato? Or what was the philosophy of Confucius or of Lao Tzu? Or this or that. Those are mental things, intellectual, philosophical things. But there are levels beyond these four. And those levels are what we call technically in yoga the plane number 5 and the plane number 6, which correspond to Vishuddha chakra and Ajna chakra, and which are generally termed as the causal body, or if you prefer, the causal body. And in this causal level, because it's a body on a microcosmic level and the universe on a macrocosmic level, on this level of the universe, there are forces which are much less visible. Again, people see physical things. People can understand conceptually energies. That guy has a great energy. That guy has no energy, or something. No? They can understand emotional things. That guy is psychologically very pure. That guy is psychologically very impure. People can even evaluate mentality. But then there is the causal world, where human beings karmically, they don't have access, exactly as the causal body would be university, and the astral and mental body, they would be high school. When you are in high school, you don't really understand what's going to happen in the university. And when you are in primary school, you definitely don't understand what is going to be taught in university. In the same way, the human beings who are confronted with physical karma and with physical limitations, they don't really understand what's happening at the level of the causal. That's why we don't have much perception of what is happening in the causal level. When some people have a certain destiny, we say they were lucky. Most people use words like joss, luck, fate, or something just to justify chains of events and other things which otherwise are inexplicable to us. Psychologically, we can say, oh yeah, well, Alexander the Great, he had a fiery nature. He was a very angry temperament or something. That we can evaluate. But why did Alexander the Great conquer the world in a few years? Why was a 16-year-old boy, 18, whatever, 21-year-old boy, why was he allowed by the fate to conquer Asia, to conquer Persia, to conquer, for God's sake, today's Afghanistan, of all places, to conquer all the Near East, and then down to Egypt and all that, to conquer incredible amounts. He finished conquering the world which he conquered, not all the world, of course, by the time he was 25 or 26. So, like, what kind of coincidence is that? Why would that happen? And therefore, there are forces which come from the causal level, which in the title of this lecture, of this satsang, I call them karma and dharma, which influence the human being, but people cannot really see through it. No? Like if a man is rich like Bill Gates, but he suffers from Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism, which is known. It's official thing, it's not conspiracy theory. Does he have a good karma or a bad karma? No? If he is contaminating the world with fake vaccines and he has decided to participate into the culling down of the population of the world because he believes that we are too many breathing oxygen on this planet and farting, is he then lucky or not lucky? Is this a good karma, or actually it's a terrible trap in which basically he is falling head forward because of his ego, because of thinking he's important, or things like that? And that's why I was thinking about clarifying. When I was young, I read about Dharma, and karma was a pretty straightforward concept. Karma is a bit more easy to understand. Karma is a bit at a lower level of the causal world, and Dharma is at a higher level of the causal world. And I read about things about Dharma, like in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna talks to Arjuna and says, oh, Arjuna, it's better for one person to die trying to fulfill their Dharma than to not perform their Dharma, or to try to assume another person's Dharma, or things like that. No? And therefore, I could not really understand. I understood that Dharma is something which human beings are supposed to do. But so is karma most of the time. And even with Dharma, there are people who did not fulfill it, or twisted it, or there were tiny little changes into it. So exactly as with the karma, it is a very potent factor, and still it is not an absolute factor in itself. And that's why for years I could not understand really how they relate. What is karma? What is dharma? How do they interact with each other? And what is their function? And that's why for many people there are things which come from karma, and there are things which come from dharma. And sometimes the things which come from karma are opposed to the things which come from dharma, and sometimes they are synergic with each other, and therefore it's very difficult to say some things. Like when somebody has a presentiment, a premonition, you are about to board an airplane, And then, as I was asked in one of the messages today, your inner voice, so-called, says, don't board this airplane. Then I found out that that airplane had an accident and crashed. Was that voice an effect of my karma? Was that voice an effect of the Dharma? Therefore, things are a little bit complex, and by looking at them little by little, we will start seeing the difference. The karma, although it is a divinely sanctioned force of the universe pertaining to the causal levels, by causal levels I mean what technically in yoga we call body number 5 and body number 6, together, without trying to make a difference. It ends at 5.5 and it starts at 6.25 or something. Not like this. I'll not go into this nitty-gritty engineering thing because it's not necessary at this point. Karma is, as most of the people who looked into yoga noticed, is very, very strong. I told you. It's exactly as imagine this table, which is here near me and so beautifully draped in pink of all colors, that this table is inclined. And anything which goes on this table, water or a roller ball, will fall towards the low part of it. And people will say, we don't know what is the thing happening here, but everything tends to go that way. It's exactly like people will say, we don't know what happens to Walter, but Walter tends to have accidents, ugly accidents. No? It's exactly the same thing. That's what karma is. It's not that it must. If I pour water on an inclined table and I come with a broom and I use that broom frantically, I can brush the water uphill. I can make the water fall from this side of the table. But that requires a consistent, considerable effort, which is going against the natural law. The natural law says that if this table is like this, the water will always tend to flow this way. And if I do nothing, I should not be surprised that the water is getting here and not here. This is how karma is. It's a tendency that things tend to go that way. And if somebody has a poor financial karma, then there is no doubt that even when he or she makes good money, then very soon the money will disappear. They will get lost. They will be invested in poor ways. There will be poor judgment, and then it will be gone again. Because karma, it is a causal force which simply says events in the life of this person have to go one way or the other. And we discussed many times about karma. We alluded it in many lectures because people are fascinated by the concept of karma. And we know that from what Buddha tells us and what from all the Hindu Buddhist traditions tell us, that the karma seems to be, to the best of our understanding, the sum total and the result of what we have done in previous lives. In those 2 million years while we have been around, or more, especially as human beings, because as animals there is a more automatic process going on because of a lack of a certain free will, then people accumulate a karma. And that karma is up and down and up and down and up and down, pleasant and unpleasant, good and bad, meaningful and not meaningful, this and that. And sometimes it accumulates a lot in one direction or in the other. And that's why the karma seems to be the sum total. There are people who say you cannot demonstrate that. And it's true. This is an allegation. It is the allegation or the statement done by great spirits like a Buddha, like a Krishna, and like the likes of them, which have postulated the existence of this force. And I know a lot of the schizophrenic kids of modern times, and by schizophrenic I don't mean medically with schizophrenia, I mean the alienated new generations, people with a demonic character and very confused in their mind, very egocentric and very materialistic, who simply stopped believing in karma. And they think that karma is a bullshit, exactly as God is a bullshit invented by some Jewish prophets and Christian saints and the Islamic mystics. Exactly in the same way, karma is another bullshit invented by Buddhist people and by Hindu Vedic people, all of them with either the purpose of giving themselves a sweet dream, a good illusion, or with the purpose of manipulating the other people around them through this concept. In Tibetan yoga, when you study the yoga of the disciple, it is said very clearly the best meditation for a beginner in yoga is to start meditating on the law of cause and effect, which is exactly the law of karma. Like the Tibetans say, it's the beginner stuff. It's elementary. If you don't understand the law of karma, you are not even a beginner in yoga. You are not even a beginner in spirituality. And you say, what if I don't believe in karma? Then you are not qualified to do spirituality. You are an outsider. You are an outsider. Keep knocking at the door. Keep looking at life. Keep studying human beings. Keep studying reality until one day you will be given the grace to see through the veil of appearances. And then one of the first things which you will see is what Buddha has seen and what others have seen, that this law is governed by a law of cause and effect, and that the effect is always the result of a certain cause. This being said, we are always aware in spirituality, and again, the people who are outsiders, they refuse even this, and this is ABC. But we start from a certain level, that there exists a law which we call the law of karma, the law of cause and effect, and that this karma, as far as we understand, is supposed to be a result of what we have done until now. This has huge effects. This has huge effects because it changes completely the mentality of people. Buddha says, although people have karma, you still can be compassionate. Because if you look at somebody who has a cancer and is in pain, through the law of karma, if you just use your Ajna chakra in a mental cold way, you can say this person was a killer, a torsionist, or something in their previous lives. And now this cancer is just the well-deserved final result of it. And therefore, why should I bother? Yeah, but don't you cry when you look at him? No, I don't cry, because if he is a torsionist, it's exactly like somebody who was condemned to death or condemned to 100 years in prison. And then you say, aren't you having pity on them? No, because they have been condemned in a just way for what they have done. So that's it. Then where is justice? If you have too much pity, then you cannot exert justice. But Buddha says, nevertheless, although karma seems to be a sort of a cosmic compensation, a sort of a cosmic justice, nevertheless, we can have compassion. Because when a child is born sick, including with a cancer, which is very painful, but there are many other painful diseases and conditions, the child usually does not remember where that karma came from. And as far as the child is concerned in its own primitive consciousness, which is not the consciousness of Shiva, it's just a limited consciousness of the ego, a consciousness of the body and of small things around there. The child behaves like an innocent soul. Like the child says, why? Why me? Why does this happen? No? Even if the child is old enough to understand that there are consequences of one's actions, the child says, I'm 7 years old, What consequences? I haven't done anything. I'm still a child. Didn't have time to do anything awful. And therefore, from the prism of doing samyama in this way, karma is a very interesting force of the universe because it makes that things will go in a certain way. And then if your karma is not to die in an airplane accident, something will happen. Usually, it will not be an angel coming and telling you, don't go into that airplane. It could be. It can be in extreme situations. But it can be that on the way to the airport, you get a flat tire and you fix it and you still think you could be in time. And then 10 minutes later, you get another flat tire. And then it's like, oh, come on, man, this is too much. And then this is karma. And therefore, karma can manifest in ways which are spectacular or not. And it also gives you certain possibilities. Because if you really get stubborn, you can bend some karmic determinations, exactly like you can push the water uphill on this table. If the table is not too much, if the table is almost vertical, and it's almost impossible to push the water up with a broom. But if the table is inclined just 10 degrees, it becomes possible to manage it. It's messy. Takes a lot of effort. You have to continue for a long time. But still, you can manage in a certain way. It's the same with karma. That's why many people in yoga, as a parenthesis, they found out that it's so fucking difficult to deal with one's karma. When your karma is in a certain way, the efforts have to be almost constant. And most people are getting crushed. And they simply say, no, man, I would prefer to die. It's like, this is too much. You are telling me that in the next 30 years, I should do this and that. Like, you have the karma to have a car accident. Therefore, for the next 30 years, you should avoid being in a car. Come on, I have to twist my life in the most absurd ways just to do that. Yes. Can you do that? For 30 years, push the water uphill? You know what? In the end, I tried for 5 years. Then I simply broke. And I said, que sera, sera. So karma has won. Therefore, the function of karma is a bit more direct. We are observing our karma. And people are always observing. How am I physically? How am I from the standpoint of health? How am I from a social standpoint, like adequate or inadequate socially? How am I from the standpoint of financial success? How am I from the standpoint of relationships? How am I from the standpoint of intellectual knowledge or intellectual capacity? And the list could continue. And generally, I tell to people when they come to yoga and they start asking me these questions, listen, you just look at your life until today, and then you tell me how was your karma. Like, have you been a very sociable person? Or have you been always a misfit and the person who didn't like to fit with the rest of the society? Have you been a financially comfortable person? Or have you always been a person who couldn't rub 2 pennies and always had to beg or to live at the lower limit of your financial comfort? And in this way, by looking at what they have and extrapolating a little bit, people can understand aspects of the karma. As I told so many times, the karma is a very complex phenomenon, and you cannot simplify it by saying, I have a difficult karma with this, I have a good karma with that. Because if Buddha is right, and you have lived in this life for 1,000,000 years as a human being, or as 2,000,000 years, then you must have had lots of activities. and many of those activities the karma has been paid, like the karma which you generate, usually the same amount of karma you pay, only that you pay the one which comes from the past, and you generate some new one which usually goes into the future. And therefore, what we are now enduring is a karma which comes from thousands of lifetimes past. And it's mixed. And it can be a good one or a bad one. For example, when you are born in a life where you have to pay karma, for some people you can see this person is in a life of suffering, in a life of pain. Well, you can take that fellow who creates so much sympathy, who, if I remember correctly, he is born in ex-Yugoslavia or Serbia or something, the guy who has no arms and no legs, Vucic or whatever his name is, no? And who claims to be perfectly okay, happy, successful, whatever, you know, and indeed he makes money from selling books and workshops and other things, you know, but still he has no arms and legs. When he goes home and looks in the mirror, he has no arms and legs. And therefore, what I'm trying to underline here is the fact that when somebody goes in such a condition, then some things are outlined for the rest of the life. Exactly like if somebody, for example, let's say has polio and is an invalid. Therefore, we say physical karma, probably sexual karma, and health karma are not good. What do you do then if, and here we're talking about Dharma, we start going to the lords of the karma, which are something else, because they are spirits that can handle the karma, and they handle it according to a higher principle called the Dharma. When the lords of the karma say this one is fucking it up for the next 60 years, why not let him pay double so that he finishes his debt faster? Increase his payments. So when he has got polio, then he also loses all his money and he lives on the dole or something. If he is born in Somalia, then there is no dole as well. He simply lives on the street, under a bridge. And therefore, sometimes the things are compounding on each other in a very mysterious way. It's exactly like that ridiculous joke, which is a quite cruel joke, but nevertheless a joke, where the guy says, there are two guys who are both of them handicapped, and one of them has a short leg and is limping, and the other one of them has a hunchback. And one day, as they meet, the one with the hunchback comes and he's straight. He's okay. And the other says, man, have you undergone surgery? It's a miracle. I thought nobody could do proper surgery for a hunchback. You know, like, what has happened? No? And the guy says, you won't believe my story if I tell you. The guy says, say, by all means. You know, it's like, it's a miracle healing. I need a miracle healing also. Tell me, maybe I can get inspired. No, and he says, I was crossing the graveyard. To come home, instead of going around, I just crossed through the graveyard in the middle of the night. And there was an ugly spirit near a grave, a demonic spirit. And I did not get scared, like I'm a handicapped person anyway. What much more can happen to me? No, I just walked boldly forward. And then that demon looked at me and he said, what's on your back? What's that thing on your back? And I said, nothing. It's just I'm hunchback like this. I'm born like this, or anyhow, I've grown up like this. You know, it's a deformity which I have. At which the demon said, give it to me. And suddenly my back got straight, and I got straightened up, and when I walked out of the graveyard, I was completely normal. This guy simply took my hunchback away from me, just like that. Whoa, says the other guy. Tomorrow I'm in the graveyard, you know. It's like, are you kidding me? Think if you will fix my leg. No, it's like if he has such a power and he fixes people, nothing, and he goes in the graveyard next night. And as he goes limping, he sees the demon in the same place. And he boldly goes in that direction, at which the demon says, "What's that thing on your back?" And the guy says, "No, no, 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 I'm not the one with the hunchback. My problem is the leg." At which the demon says, "Take the hunch. Take the hunchback." You know? Like sometimes you have a short leg, and on top of it you get a hunchback as well. No? It's a cruel joke, but which illustrates this principle that sometimes the karmic things have very strange laws and they seem to be compounded. And somebody catches a winning streak, and then bad things are not happening to that person, at least for a very long time. And it's luck over luck over luck over luck. And it's like the luck of the pig. And people say, how is it possible? Because in 2000 lifetimes, you have both positive and negative residues of karma. And if we scrap together all the positive ones, we can put together for a splendid lifetime. And therefore, the question is how this karma is administered. Svara Yoga, which is one of the secret branches of yoga, but where it couples with astrology and other things, it says that, for example, your karma comes back when 2, 3, 4, 5 or more planets find themselves exactly in the same astrological position where they were when you got that karma. Like you broke somebody's leg when the sun was in Sagittarius and the moon was in Virgo and the Jupiter was in Aries. When this combination happens again, which happens once every 50 years, then that karma theoretically could come back to you. The problem is that, of course, I don't know what karma I have, and I don't know when it was produced astrologically, and therefore it becomes practically impossible for me, from this knowledge alone, to see when the karma is coming back. Some people are endowed with such a clairvoyance that they see bits and pieces of it, and they say, be careful because I can feel you are prone to accidents or you are prone to break your leg. How did you know? I can't even explain it. It's just a higher mechanism of the brain in which the subconscious mind gets that information. And therefore, the karma seems to come to us like a Russian roulette. It's coming to us at various moments according to the movements of the planets, and I can always say, right now the sun is in Scorpio. In a few days it goes in Sagittarius. Will something special happen then? Because my Jupiter is in Aries and my this, no? I don't know, because I don't know what karma I had and when it was generated, in what circumstances. And therefore karma remains a mystery. But it usually does not come like a sequence. Like you've got a short leg, and here is a hunchback on top of it for you. No? This is not natural. Natural is that things are a mixture. But this mixture of karma can be fiddled with. The Tibetans they have simply said at the level of Ajna Chakra, which is also the level of Shambhala, so this will be related with Shambhala one way or another. I'm not saying it is Shambhala which does that, but it is something which is par with Shambhala. There are huge entities, spirits, which are given this responsibility, exactly as there are spirits, people who are given the responsibility to handle the railways. They just regulate the going and coming of the trains and the railway functioning. Exactly in the same way in the universe, there are some entities which are given, some of them for planet Earth, for example, which are given the responsibility, you regulate the karma. The karma is coming astrologically, and then sometimes you need to fiddle with it a little bit. And because you have a very strong Ajna chakra, you can push it. You can modify it. Exactly like putty. Like you take putty and you can make a ball or a cube. It's the same putty, it just depends what shape you give to it. So the so-called lords of the karma are very powerful entities which work on a higher principle, and that higher principle is already a little bit part of Dharma. And that simply says there is not only karma, there are higher principles which can induce us to create a strategy about the karma. Like, for example, we have Walter, and Walter has some average negative karma, which everybody has. Everybody has some. It's very seldom that you find a spirit, especially incarnated nowadays in Kali Yuga, who doesn't have some funny karma. By funny meaning painful, negative. No? And therefore everybody has some. But look, Walter has some absolutely amazingly wonderful circumstances in his life. He is born from a family which did not create major psychological traumas in his childhood. Like, Walter is not a weirdo. Walter is not fucked up. So he is a pretty healthy person emotionally. Walter is healthy physically. Walter has discovered the principle of brahmacharya at a good time in his life. Walter is an intelligent person, more than the average. Walter is reasonably compassionate and has not become an arrogant, demonic person. Therefore, Walter has got a shot for something really, really big right now. But unfortunately, he has from time to time some negative karmas. So we, the lords of karma, we can do like this. We pick up all the negative karma in his path and put it on a shelf, put it in storage, and give him a clear run so that he can run. And if Walter, in 25 years of yoga, reaches nirvana, then he will be able to burn that negative karma by himself, and that karma is not necessary anymore. So the lords of karma can reshuffle your karma, can postpone some things to give you a chance. On the contrary, the lords of karma say Walter has got a short leg. Here is some other negative karma from 25 lifetimes ago about a hunchback. Give him the fucking hunchback also. Because in this way, he will not need to live in one life with a short leg and in the next life with a hunchback. We put them both in the same life, and then his pain will be shorter, more intense, but shorter. In this life, he obviously will not reach nirvana. It's very tough to say such a thing, like, who are you to judge that? Well, there are spirits which are allowed to take such steps. They don't create karma for you, neither positive nor negative. They just take the pieces of the Lego which exist and they reassemble them in a creative way. People, if they would know this, they would be very rebellious, because they say, who gave you the right? God gave them the right. Shambhala gave them the right. The Buddhas of the past, present, and future gave them the right. And you, being an ignorant person, can't do anything about it. You can complain and kick your feet as much as you want. The lords of the karma have already decided a structure. They have simply picked up things and they made a structure. It's exactly like a script player makes the script of a movie. And they say, in this episode of our series, these things are going to happen. This is already a higher principle than karma, because the karma is there and the karma will generally not be changed. It will not be changed. Definitely, I have never heard about examples where people's karma would become worse. But we have heard about examples where karma got better. That means some negative karma can be eliminated, some negative karma will never be added. This is because God is an anti-entropic or unentropic force, as Saint Mary of Egypt said when she gave a blessing. She expressed it brilliantly. She said, "Blessed be God who loves people and wishes for their salvation." Blessed be God, two things, who loves people and wishes for their salvation. God loves you because you are God. You are a particle of God. That she didn't know or she didn't want to say why God loves people. But for some mysterious reason, God loves people. Like people are God's project, and God loves his project. He is in love with his project. And he wishes for their salvation. Like this project is meant that everybody should become a Buddha. And therefore God says, come on, come on, come on, come on, become a Buddha. He wishes actively for your salvation, for everyone's salvation. And therefore, God is doing things to improve the situation, never to make it worse. In this universe, things are supposed to be 50-50. Equal amounts of yin and yang, equal amounts of chaos and order, equal amounts of pleasure and pain, equal amounts of light and darkness. Nevertheless, God loves people and wishes for their salvation, which means things are still going to the better. It's not 50-50. It's 51 with 49. That's why the people who believe in the devil or in darkness, they lost already, because the game is rigged. Like when you go to a casino, to slot machines or something, they are rigged for you to lose your money. That occasionally one person in 1,000 can be lucky for a short time, it's completely out of the question. All in all, casinos and other gambling places, they work on the basis of the laws of probability, of mathematical probability, and they are calculated always to win. And they do always win. The people who own casinos and gambling things, they make a fortune, precisely because always. And again, the fact that 1 in 1,000 has a stroke of luck, that's completely out of the question, and only the idiots get influenced by that. Therefore, in this universe, things would be 50-50, but they are not. In the Indian metaphysics, that is illustrated by the fantastic myth where Shiva drinks the poison of the universe. When they churned the ocean of the universe, they came out some wonderful things, including Amrita, the Soma, the nectar of immortality. But together with the nectar of immortality also came the poison. If they would have let it be, then the poison would have compensated for Amrita. No? Because the ocean was 50-50. The ocean was Prakriti. You can't do things without 50-50. It has to be 50-50. And then God, from the very beginning, from the day when God said, "Let there be light," in the moment when the creation appeared, God has rigged the game. But God has rigged the game in a positive way so that you and I can win. The game is rigged so we can win. The entropy is weaker than the anti-entropy. It's 51% for spirit and 49% for chaos. So in this way, that's why Mary of Egypt says, "Glory be to God who loves people and wishes for their salvation." The universe is rigged. It's prepared already for you and I to win, although it can take thousands of lifetimes and a lot of experience and a lot of pain. And in the Hindu myth, Shiva, when everybody was terrified, like people didn't know how to cope. We got some hills, but now we've got some valleys. We got Amrita, but now we got the poison. And then Shiva took the poison and put it in his Vishuddha chakra. And the poison was so bad that the throat of Shiva became, the Vishuddha chakra of Shiva became blue in color. Shiva Nilkant, Shiva with a blue throat, which means Shiva, which takes away the poison. Why? That poison is inactivated so that the scales of the universe can be rigged a little bit in the favor of evolution. So God loves people and wishes for their salvation. That's why God has cheated so that it is possible. Therefore, there are the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the lords of the karma and others who participate to this rigging of the game. And God simply tells them, if you can do something positive for Walter within certain limits, you are allowed to rig the game. And in some special circumstances, when Walter meets with Jesus Christ says, you know what? Your sins are forgiven. Just take your bed and go home. God never said to anybody, Jesus never said, your sins are doubled. Go home and suffer, you bitch. Never. Never ever. And you don't expect that. No, although it's very possible from that level of consciousness. But it's because God loves people and wishes for their salvation. This is already called Dharma, that there is a divine duty, that there is some divine intent. And according to that divine intent, which is a bit higher than karma, it rules over karma, it is possible to overrule the karma. However, the laws of the universe say, okay, when Jesus meets with somebody, he can cancel their karma. But you, the lords of karma, you don't have that latitude. You don't have that freedom. So the karma is the karma. You can reshuffle it. You can take some negative karma and say, we postpone this for 500 years so that only some real nice things manifest right now. And that is because that person has a chance, stands a chance. And maybe that person can reach freedom, and then it's all finished. Then the negative karma can go. And that's why there exists a higher level than karma. With karma, we receive the things more like intuitively. It's very difficult to presume that the karma will tell you, will produce a reaction in your subconscious mind, and so your inner voice will say, don't climb in that airplane. Danger, danger, danger. That's not karma. Karma will break the tires of your car. Karma will give you a violent diarrhea. Karma will do something in which, without being explained to you, there will be a strong pressure for you to move to the left or to the right. So karma is more intuitive in this way. Like you can feel the effects of karma and you can have an intuition. But there is a level which is above that, and that level already contains a mental knowledge. It's not like intuitive like Vishuddha. It is mental like Ajna. And in that level, there is a sort of clear intent. And that level is, therefore, that your karma acts pretty chaotically. And then the lords of karma may want to make a little bit of order in this chaos. And they simply say, you know what? If you push strong enough, then Walter can become generous. Walter has no generosity. One of the beautiful features of character, right? We can define 20 virtues. A Buddha or a Bodhisattva, how should they be? Miserly or generous? Cowardly or brave? Cheating, deceitful, or straightforward and truthful? This and that. And therefore, you take a virtue, and then you say this generosity, like we can suspect that Buddha, Gautama Buddha, the historical Buddha, was a very generous person because he had all the virtues of a Buddha. He had lived in human bodies for thousands of lifetimes, and he did lots of shit until he stopped doing shit and he started doing the good things. And therefore, the lords of the karma, in accordance with the divine law, remember they always know the divine law, they will simply say, Walter, in this life, we will insist on generosity. What about sexual success? That's not a theme in this life. It's not something which we want to approach. If we finish with the generosity by the time Walter is 35 years old, then we'll reconvene and we'll make a sort of emergency strategy in which we'll say, look, Walter already by the age of 35 has acquired generosity. Now we have two choices. Either we kill him because he has finished his task in this life, or we give him a new task so that he becomes double as much speed. God loves people and wishes for their salvation. So we are happy if Walter is healthy and has another 35 years of his life going, and then we can give him another task to solve. Besides being generous, now he has to become brave. So then we make plan B. There is a plan B and a plan C and everything. But normally we focus on plan A. Walter has to acquire generosity. And if we let things karmically, a little bit of good karma, a little bit of bad karma, a planetary circumstance here, a planetary circumstance there, things are going with a small drip. Drop, drop, little by little. And then the lords of the karma say, no, 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 no. It's exactly like when you learn to write. Kids learn to write in the first grade, period. Kids learn the multiplication table in the third grade. Like why don't kids learn the multiplication table in the fourth grade or in the second grade? Simply because some people who studied education said when kids are 9 years old, then their brain is strong enough to start doing multiplication. Some people may disagree, like Rudolf Steiner. He created a different set of schools in which he said, no, the kids should first study history and then say whatever. Agreed or not agreed, it doesn't matter. In the divine level, there is not this disagreement. And therefore, the lords of karma simply say, Walter, now is at the time to learn this. Like, for example, when you study medical school, there are two very big exams which almost every medical student that you'll talk to will remember. One of them is anatomy. Like a doctor has to study anatomy really well. And another one is pharmacology. Like every doctor has to know thousands of drugs by heart, and which one of them does and how they mix with each other and all that. And therefore, and these are very important exams in any medical school, either you study in the United States or in Japan or in Germany. That's how medical school is. Well, you cannot pass the exam of pharmacology before the exam of anatomy. First, you need to pass anatomy, because if you don't know anatomy, you are not qualified to take other decisions and so on. It's the same here. The lords of the karma have certain criteria, and they basically will tell to themselves, now Walter has to become generous. It's the time for generosity. How do we organize his karma? Again, we don't add karma. We don't make it worse. How do we reshuffle it so as it has this effect? Yeah, but there is here a very, very big karmic thing which was coming when Walter was supposed to be 40 years old, which would spoil the whole thing. No? Then this thing, we take it and we flush it to the next life. It's not important right now because it spoils our plan. Yeah? We keep only what we need for this. and we make it at maximum efficiency, maximum push, because God is in a hurry. God loves people and wishes for their salvation. So God says, when do you deliver Walter to me enlightened? I need Walter to be a Buddha. When? And the lords of karma say, in 1,000,000 years. We can't do it faster. God says, okay, in 1,000,000 years, but don't make it 1.5. Please, let it be just 1,000,000 years. And therefore, the lords of karma try to do the best to push us in the evolution. This becomes Dharma. Many people think that Dharma is something which comes directly from God. But actually, when it interacts with our karma, it's not directly. God has intermediaries, proxies, which do that. It doesn't mean that God does not watch Walter every day, every minute, every second. It does not mean that God doesn't know what's happening, because God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. But God doesn't need to poke his finger into the things, because he has delegated the job to some who are competent enough to fulfill that job. And that's why for people there is a Dharma. For example, the American sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce, he was a Pisces, and he was endowed with the powerful quality of clairvoyance. And until the age of 30 or something, he was a photographer. And then it was in his Dharma, which he didn't know, that he should become clairvoyant and act as an open clairvoyant for humanity. And then he had a coma, and in coma he spoke about the healing. And somebody went and found that healing method, brought it to him, and then he was healed. And then it was like, what did you do, man? You went into a trance and you found a cure. Well, can you do it again? And then he said, no, I don't want to touch that. It's shit, I'm afraid of it. I can't do that. I'm afraid I'm losing my mind. What is this? Blah, 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 blah. Now, what is if I'm just imagining things? What if, I can't do that. And then, in a matter of days, he became blind. Blind for a photographer to become. He said, I want to be just a photographer, a nobody. No, he became blind. And then he dreamt, it's like, unless you do what you are told, you will stay blind. He said, okay, I will find cures for people. His eyesight came back in a second. Next day he was seeing again. This is Dharma. Dharma is not the same thing as karma. He had a karma with good things and bad things, which were reshuffled. Now, for most people, their Dharma is not very important. I hate to say it, but not everybody is equally important to God at every moment of this universe. Edgar Cayce was a relevant person. At the same time, in France or in Austria, there lived lots of stupid peasants who also had a Dharma. Nobody gave a shit about their Dharma because it was absolutely banal and insignificant. They were just monkey souls who had to go from point A to point B. And they did go from point A to point B. But it was not something as spectacular as Edgar Cayce. That's why the Dharma of Edgar Cayce was much more shocking than the Dharma of 1 billion anonymous citizens who lived here and there. That's why with this Dharma, things are not equal. Everybody has a karma, and that karma is the result of previous actions. There are men and women who have a very severe negative karma, and there are also some which have a very intense positive karma. But with the Dharma, things are different because most people are at a stage of their development where it doesn't make much difference. It's just a little step from A to B, and in the next life it will be from B to C, and in the next life it will be from seed. And then there come people who are like Napoleon, who are like Edgar Cayce, who are like Albert Einstein, who are like, you name it, find any other, Genghis Khan or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and their function is way more visible and way, way more relevant in the history of the world. And for those people, the Dharma is much more sharp in this way. It is said by Tibetan clairvoyants that for such people, the lords of karma, they gather more often. There is needed for several powerful lords of karma to administrate the dharma of this one person. Because this one person, try to think about the karma of Napoleon and the dharma of Napoleon. Try to think about the dharma of Genghis Khan. Try to think about the dharma of the people who created the internet or smartphones. Or, like how much did it influence humanity? How much effect does it have? And thus, the evolution of our soul is generally impelled by karma. And karma is intelligent enough, although we don't see it very clearly, that if we do something stupid, we suffer. And very often when we suffer, we don't know why we suffer. And we ask ourselves, usually uselessly, why the heck is this happening to me? And then it happens in 5 lifetimes again. And then it happens in another 10 lifetimes again. And eventually my subconscious mind puts 2 and 2 together and starts getting the law, starts understanding the rules of the game intuitively, like even an animal with his intelligence understands some simple rules of the game. With Dharma, things go to the next level, because Dharma simply says, also, whatever your karma is, God wants something from you. But you can say, God, I have a bad karma in terms of my health. I am a sickly person. Yeah, even a sickly person can change the world, a la Stephen Hawking or something, Even a sickly person can have a disproportionate effect. So I have a shitty karma, and God gave me a peculiar dharma. And that dharma can be fulfilled. It usually is never given impossible. Karma cannot be impossible because karma is the result of the actions. But the dharma, we can say, come on, God, you want too much from me. Usually, no. Usually the lords of the karma, with the agreement of the divine consciousness, they know exactly how much you can take. They know how much they can stretch you. And people complain, God, I can't take it anymore. In Romania, there is a beautiful expression, a proverb, which says, may you never be loaded with as much as you really can shoulder. Because every people complain, I can't take it anymore. You could actually take 3 times more. Stop complaining, because if you want, God can overload you a little bit. Then you will see that what you had was a joke compared to what it can be. And therefore, endure it with stoicism. Endure the things, because it's all of it Dharma. Sometimes, some people don't activate correctly this Dharma. That means some people have to pray, meditate, and simply say, I'm ready to shoulder my Dharma. Like your karma, you can't vote for it. You will shoulder it anyway. And your only chance is that when you meet with Jesus, when you meet with Buddha, when your karma becomes redundant and useless, it can be deleted simply. Like Jesus says, now you understood, all the rest of your karma is wiped out because it's a useless thing. You already understood. You've seen. Karma is obsolete. becomes, I wipe it out, I give it, I swallow it in the throat of Shiva. I take all that karma, good, bad, it doesn't matter, it's out. You don't need it. Normally, we can't get rid of the karma. Only the lords of the karma, only the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the people from Shambhala, only Jesus Christ, only gurus like Ramakrishna and others can fiddle with people's karma up till a certain point, and usually they will never do it in such a way that they can undermine the Dharma. The Dharma means that out of the karma which we have, there are tasks, there is a divine law. And that divine law says, now it's time for that. Again, that Dharma is intelligent, alive, and adaptive. It says you should get generosity. You know what? Somehow I had the spiritual intuition that God is putting me to a test. And I'm saying, you know what? Then I will become the most generous person in my life. I'll make in such a way that I've never met somebody who has my degree of generosity. Boom. Then in 5 years, the lords of karma say, God, it's done. This guy is done. Do we let him die and do a little bit in each life, or do you want to give him plan B, extra tasks? And then God says, well, give him more. Then you do it quickly again. Can you give him more? And then God says, you know what, this guy can become a Buddha. Like change of plan, give him everything. Put all of it. He didn't have the Dharma to become a Buddha in this life, but he surprised me. His free will, his intuition, his effort, and is so great, then he has done much more than I expected. Is it possible? Yes. Jesus says very clearly that God is playing with people, waiting for some of their reactions to see. They surprise him, and some people surprise in a negative way, and some people surprise in a positive way. To those who surprise in a negative way, God does not punish them. God simply says, go according to your karma, because your karma is punishment enough. But those who do it in a positive way, they get the rewards of it. That's why each human being has to look first at their karma, like how is my karma until today? This. If you are intelligent enough, you can see your karma. Can I not expect that suddenly I will be hit by a train? Yes, that means I am okay. I had a good financial karma. I had a good social karma. I had a good sexual karma. And there is some violent karma which I haven't seen coming and which hit me when I was 60 years old. There are people who were healthy until 60 and they had good money and good health and good many other things. And at the age of 60, they fell off a block of flats or they got hit by a train and they died violently. And if you would ask them, do you have a violent karma? When they were 59 years old, they said, no, not as far as I can say. So there can be unexpected karmic things which we still don't see. But 90% of our karma is quite clear. When you look at the previous years of your life, you kind of see how your karma, not 100%, but 90% you see it. When it comes to Dharma, normal people who are not related to spirituality, they don't see it. They can't understand it. Most people who are not spiritual, they don't even want to agree that there is a Dharma. The very, very unspiritual people, they don't even want to agree that there is a karma. They are rebelling even against that concept. But the middle ones, they think that there is a karma, but they cannot say, they say, leave me alone with my karma. I'm dealing with my karma. Why? But there is a Dharma, which is superior. It's a higher concept, which allows the reshuffling of the karma and the reshaping of the karma within some generous limits. And therefore, for people who are in spirituality, it's one thing to meditate on their karma and to see how is karma modifying my evolution. What did I learn until now from the laws of karma. Like there are people who are rich and they went into this project in England and America, of all places, which is living with $1 per day. Can you survive with $1 per day in Great Britain, which is a rather expensive country? They did. Famous actors from Hollywood and others, they lived for 1 month with $30, eating on the street, sleeping in public shelters, doing whatever they could survive with $1 per day. No? So in this way, what I'm trying to say is, what did I learn from my karma? And then spiritual people also should ask themselves, do I have a dharma? If you are a stupid peasant from Austria in the 18th century or whatever that was, 19th century, then your dharma is banal. But if you have a destiny, if there is a spiritual destiny acting with you, then your dharma becomes significant. No? Think about Joan of Arc, exceptional woman, born from peasants, completely changed the history of France. Just one woman who was considered to be hysterical, insane, nobody knew exactly how smart she really was or something. Eventually the British burned her as a witch. To get rid of her, it was a political thing. She was not doing any witchcraft, although her paranormal abilities were sometimes leading to some weird conclusions, But Joan of Arc, she really had a dharma, because France had been cursed by the master of the Templars. When they caught the Templars red-handed in the 14th century, in 1300 and something, the master of the Templars, when he was burned at stake, he cursed the kings of France for 13 generations. If you want to read about that in literature, there is a wonderful series of novels called Les Rois Maudits, the Accursed Kings, which tells the story from the first one, Philip, all the way up till the 13th. The 13th was the one who was saved by Joan of Arc. When the kings between 13-something to Joan of Arc, they were stupid, weak, and constantly they shot themselves in the foot as if there was an incredible curse, and that curse was on them so that they should harm France. And in the time when the last generation came, then this curse had to stop. And to stop, it had to stop through an exceptional human being. And that exceptional human being was like Virgin Mary number 2. It was the second Virgin Mary. It was the Virgin Mary especially for the French. And that was Joan of Arc. It was the woman who, exactly as Virgin Mary saved humanity by giving birth to Jesus Christ, exactly in the same way, Joan of Arc didn't give birth to a kid. She just gave birth to the freedom and independence of France. The Templar curse, which had lasted for 200 years, was finished. So in this way, Joan of Arc had a great dharma. What was the dharma of the Prophet Muhammad? What was the dharma of Genghis Khan? We can take people who had military, political, social, spiritual, and other types of dharma. No? There is a Sufi series which maybe we should see in our cinema club, which is about the life of Yunus Imre, the Sufi poet of Turkey. You see, in the beginning he was a Mr. Nobody. He was just a local judge or something, And the fame of that man and what he did for the Ottoman Empire and for the soul of Turkey, it went on for 8 centuries. That man blessed the history of his country, changed it for the next 8 centuries. He had an extraordinary Dharma. And it was because he wrote poems, he wrote like Rumi. He was like a sort of second Rumi, but for the Turkish part. Therefore, everybody who goes into spirituality should study their own karma and make adjustments. If you see that your karma is too tough, then pray, and pray for the lords of karma to reshuffle it, to give you a chance, to give you a postponement, to give you a break. So karma can be dealt with, but then you have to meditate seriously about what is the Dharma. And it doesn't need to be the Dharma that you have to save France or that you have to modify the history of Turkey. It can be the Dharma that you say, it is my Dharma to acquire generosity. It is my Dharma to acquire compassion. It is my Dharma to reach purity. It is my Dharma. Try to remember what you learn in the astrology workshop, where each astrological sign has a mission from God and the strength. No? It is the lessons of love, as they are called. Virgos can show that love is purity, because Virgos have purity. The Virgo is an astrological sign which is very much focused on purity. And if they want to show you that to really be in love, there needs to be purity, a Virgo can do that and understands that. But then there is a lesson of each astrological sign, because they also have to learn that, for example, in this case, that love means trust. That you have to trust. And therefore, even in this way, this is a simplified Dharma. But there is more to it, because Dharma is alive, it changes, it adapts, and it comes ultimately directly from God. So, we navigate through the ocean of our karma, and at the same time we have to build up and understand what is our Dharma in this world. Remember, everybody who is spiritual goes somewhere. For example, when Jesus created the 12 apostles, they were just fishermen. Most of them couldn't read and write. Only Matthew, the tax collector, and probably Judas, the traitor, were the ones who could read and write. Peter was a fisherman. He couldn't read and write, I'm sure. No? And still those people became the pillars of the Western civilization. Now, today, we study the Western civilization, which modified the culture of Japan, of China, of Australia, of South America. How? It started with those 12 people. Without those 12 people, which are the apostles of Christ, the world wouldn't have been changed that way. And therefore, what a Dharma they had. And when Peter was running away from the persecution in Rome, the famous story, another movie that we should see. Unfortunately, these movies are Hollywood and they are made in stupid ways. They give us the spiritual part this much and all sorts of useless filling this much. No, there is the movie called Quo Vadis, from the literature of Sienkiewicz, of Henryk Sienkiewicz, the Nobel Prize winner from Poland, no? Where Peter is going away, and then he meets with Jesus outside of Rome. He's running from Rome, and he sees Jesus and he says, my God, it's like, I haven't seen you for 30 years. Where are you? And he asks him in Latin, which of course Peter would not speak in Latin. It's a stupid thing made by a Polish writer who was speaking Latin. Polish were ultra-Catholics and they were educated in Latin. He says, Quo vadis Domine? Where do you go, O Lord? And Jesus says, well, if you are running away from Rome, then I'm going to Rome so that they will crucify me the second time. This is a sign of the Dharma, like you have to be totally stupid not to understand what Peter understood in a second. That he was supposed to sacrifice himself and that it was a worthy end for his life, being old and incapable, why should you live another 10 years and shit in your underwear and die vomiting, you know? Why not die honorably for a cause and in this way make another effect? So Peter turned on his heels and went back to Rome. And then they caught him and they crucified him. But it was because he saw Jesus. And see, Jesus said, well, if you are afraid, I can understand. No, I'm a human being. I know what it is to be afraid. I understand that you are running away, but then I'm going to sacrifice once more. And Peter said, no, I got the point. My Dharma is that now it's my turn. And when they wanted to crucify him, you know the story, I've said it several times, that Peter said, you know, it's like now he was convinced that it's happening and so on, you know, and he had his faith, you know, and he said it's impossible, and the Roman soldier says, bullshit, it's impossible, you are getting it right now, you know, and which he said, no, he said, it's completely impossible that I should get the same glorious death as Jesus. And are you kidding me? You know, I'm a worm compared to Jesus. You cannot give me the same death as a Jesus. It's too honorable for me. No, and the soldier said, oh, you want worse? We can give you worse. And they crucified him upside down, which is a horrible way of dying, you know, like get blood out of your nose and everything. You know, it's like it's painful and agonizing way more than a normal crucifixion, you know. That was Dharma. You know, like when Peter understood, okay, somebody needs to sacrifice to clean Rome, because Rome has a terrible karma, and there needs to be somebody to sacrifice as Jesus in Jerusalem sacrificed for the world. Now it's time for me to make a small sacrifice here comparable to Jesus. Then when he did, he doubled it up. He went into overdrive. He said, are you kidding me? Not only that you can crucify me, but you can do it twice over, you know. It's like, go ahead, do your worst. No, it was not easy. No, you cannot say, well, was he happy? No, he was not happy. He probably regretted it the next second when they put him upside down and they nailed him. He probably said, oh, fuck, what a sort of an imbecile have I been, you know. But that was the Dharma. And Jesus looked down and said, oh boy, that boy really did it, you know. It's like, no, he really, so this Dharma is way more than karma. You can have the Dharma to be something, and for example, you can have a bad karma. Ramanujan, the mathematical genius, he died at the age of 30-something of tuberculosis. And Saint Teresa of Lisieux in France, she died at the age of 20-something of tuberculosis. No? Like, they had a bad karma in terms of health, but their Dharma, a lot in the Catholic Church changed because of Saint Teresa of Lisieux, and a lot in mathematics changed because of Ramanujan. So it doesn't matter that their karma was feeble, that their health karma was feeble. They had a Dharma, and they produced a change in the world, and that change in the world was also a big step in their evolution. So look at your karma, deal with it, administer it. I had a satsang about how to deal with karma, the 10 or 11 methods of dealing with karma. We do it when we do Ajna Chakra retreats and other retreats about how to deal with karma. And after you understand some things about karma, try to think if there is a Dharma as far as you are concerned. Some people, out of humbleness, can say, I am Mr. Nobody. There is no Dharma. I mean, there is a personal Dharma, maybe, that I should acquire wisdom, that I should acquire detachment, that I should acquire compassion. But am I supposed to change the history of France? I don't go there unless an angel is coming and telling me, now do this or do that. And therefore, with Dharma, things are in the hands of God, and one should just follow the cues of this. Edgar Cayce had no choice, because those angels told him clearly, if you want to be blind for the rest of your life, go ahead. But God wants you to become a healing prophet. Because in the history of North America, such a person is necessary. Edgar Cayce was not the Alpha and the Omega. He was not Jesus Christ. He also made prophecies which were wrong, blatantly wrong. He overstretched. He didn't understand fully what was required of him. But still, when you read the story about Edgar Cayce, it's like, wow, there is something. So he made a difference. That was required of him. And of course, that Dharma was important for him, first of all. It was important for the evolution of his soul, first of all. That's why think in these two coordinates about your own personal evolution. How do you deal with your karma? What do you understand about your Dharma? And act accordingly. If there is something to change in your karma, you can go to your Dharma and act accordingly. I hope this exemplification, where I spoke freely, just trying to make you understand these concepts, has given you more understanding about how karma and Dharma dance together in our personal evolution and guide us through the evolution until we reach to the state of Buddha. With this, I wish to finish for tonight, and I will see if next week or when it is, if I manage to do my homework with Hatha Yoga Pradipika and give you sometimes Hatha Yoga Pradipika, sometimes other themes. Meanwhile, feel free to send to our administration and teaching department other suggestions and questions for the possible subjects of satsangs. And I hope this has helped you understand other things. Somebody was asking me if I would speak about the Dharma of being born as a man or being born as a woman. Obviously, there are differences between being in the body of a man and being in the body of a woman. No? A woman has the capacity to create life in her own body, which a man cannot do whatever he does. As much as genetical transformations he undergoes and sex change surgery he does, there is nothing until today which allows to a man to conceive life in his body like a woman simply does in her uterus. The uterus of a woman is an altar. It's a temple, it's a sanctuary, it's a sacred space, and that's why the energy of the uterus is very, very special, because that's the only place in the human universe where life, a new life, can appear. No? So there are dharmas of being a man and being a woman, and when you study history and everything, you see them. Then other people ask me other collateral questions, like there was one who asked me about the inner voice. You know, when karma doesn't usually give you an inner voice, more like an intuition. But Dharma, when it says go there, no, don't do that, that's a clear thing which comes from Dharma. Socrates said that he had a daimon, not a demon, a daimon which was sitting on his left shoulder and which can only stop him from doing the forbidden things. Whenever Socrates was about to do something shitty, this daimon, like a parrot sitting on his shoulder, said, no. But that's a huge advantage. If you would have a parrot on your shoulder who could tell you no, how many mistakes would you have avoided in your life? How many decisions which now you consider wrong you may have taken, and just the daimon could have said no. But then you have to listen as well. Socrates was prepared to listen. It didn't come to him randomly. It is the result of a certain moral and ethical purity which he had. So usually these inner voices, which we can consider the voice of the Supreme Self, or of the guardian angel, or of the lords of karma, or of God, is usually related more with Dharma than with karma. because karma takes care of itself in its own ways. But Dharma is a more intelligent principle in which there is a deliberate factor, there is a conscious modification of the things. In this way, I have been asked other things, and of course we can talk one day about what do we see about the Dharma of being in the body of a man or in the body of a woman, or about other such things. These are local applications. I tried tonight to speak in the general terms to make you understand the general laws which govern these fundamental concepts. Again, enough for tonight, and we'll continue, I hope, with satsangs as we go along the path.